Coming up on today's show, we've got some takeaways, some news, and some recap from the first real day of Denver's training camp. So stay tuned for everything coming out of Dove Valley after day one. What's going on, guys? Welcome into another edition of the Broncos Breakdown. We're going to start today's show off by looking at some injury news, starting with Javonte Williams. We have an update now that players are back at the facility. Practice is getting underway, and Sean Payton spoke to the media and somewhat outlined Javonte Williams' recovery plan. But Zach Stevens tweeted out earlier today that the Broncos will ease Javonte Williams into camp, including days off, as he recovers from a brutal knee injury last year, per Sean Payton. We're pleased with his progress. So, Javonte Williams did practice at least today, the first day of training camp, the first real day, as players reported yesterday, but now they're on the practice field. And by all accounts, he looked and ran just fine. I mean, he didn't look like he had a limp or he looked like he was not 100%. Again, these are not quite 100% practices yet. We don't see that until the pads come on, which won't be for another week or so. But I am here to remind you that this is not a standard ACL recovery. I know I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but the guy suffered multiple torn knee ligaments. This is going to be a bit of a revamping process. I mean, he's still light years ahead of where he would be or where I thought he would be going into training camp. But Sean Payton's plan is for some days Javonte Williams is on and some days he is off, right? They're going to give him some rest days. They're going to give his knee some time to recover and not push it or anything like that, because it is July. We're not even in August yet. And even once we get into August, we'll say it's still only August. So a long time until week one against the Raiders. But Denver is putting together a good plan in place to get Javonte Williams ready to go for week one, which if you told me that 6 months ago, I would not have believed you. The guy suffered a major knee injury, and most running backs that first year back after an ACL tear are only 75% of themselves. We're talking about an ACL tear and then some. So clap it up for Javonte Williams for at least being out on the field right now and not even on the PUP list or hanging out with the trainers inside. Before we get to the rest of our takeaways from training camp day one, if you want to support the show, like the video. That would go a long way. It would be greatly appreciated. And if you're looking for a Broncos YouTube channel, consider subscribing, because we're going to keep you in the loop all training camp long. Our second takeaway from camp is Marvin Mims. Is he injured? Sounds like it. Did not see this one coming, but Sean Payton, speaking to the media, said that Marvin Mims injured his hamstring while he was working out before training camp. Now, Mims is expected to be ready to go in the next 4 to 5 days, maybe a week tops. That's what Sean Payton said. I'm sure they're not going to push it or rush it, though. This is a former second-round pick from a few months ago, a guy Denver identified and liked so much they decided to move up and secure the Oklahoma Sooner. Fingers crossed that it is nothing major, but I am going to be the history guy and the well-actually guy and say we have somewhat been down this path before in terms of former rookies coming into camp with a hamstring injury. Does it ring any bells for anyone? Because Greg Dulcich last year, he missed 5 games due to a hamstring injury. We did not see him much at all during training camp or really for the entire offseason. Now, if you recall, Marvin Mims did deal with a hamstring injury back in the spring. This is a different hamstring injury, Sean Payton said. So it's at least, I think, a good sign that it's not an aggravated hamstring, but it's probably not good to have 2 hamstrings kind of on the fritz going into training camp and whatnot. But you don't want to push Marvin Mims, but I'm also not going to say shut him down until September. No, you need these rookies to get acclimated to NFL speed, to learn the playbook, because so often we see rookies who get injured and nicked up in the training camp portion go, yeah, I really didn't know what I was doing for much of my rookie season until October and November. And yeah, you don't want to push an injury and make it worse, but if you want Marvin Mims to be a contributor to this team, he's going to need reps. He's going to need training camp reps. So hopefully we do see him back sooner rather than later. Now, off the wall question here, I just kind of want to get a pulse of everyone watching right now. Who do you think has a better rookie year? Marvin Mims or Drew Sanders? I'm probably going to lean towards Drew Sanders. I'm all the way in on the Drew Sanders hype train. Huge fan of that selection coming out of Arkansas. I think he's going to be an impact player on defense. But if you want to go with Marvin Mims, type his jersey number 83. This is also officially, who's that guy? You know what I mean? Like, don't recognize these jersey numbers for these rookies. So good time to start getting acclimated and refreshed on all the rookies' new jersey numbers. So Marvin Mims sporting 83 and Drew Sanders rocking 41. Third takeaway out of training camp day one, it is Brett Maher's job to lose in my eyes. Back in June, whatever it was when they released Brandon McManus, it feels like that was so long ago at this point. Denver did a light, scouting operation to figure out who the replacement could be. They brought in a handful of kickers. Ultimately, they only signed Elliott Fry, but fast forward a few months later, and Denver adds Brett Maher. Now, Sean Payton did comment on why there was a bit of a delay for adding Brett Maher, because you compare his resume to Elliott Fry's, and it should be a no-brainer in my eyes. But Zach Stevens tweeted out, Sean Payton said the Broncos were a little off contract-wise with Brett Maher during the offseason. That's why they didn't initially sign him. Payton is happy they signed him before camp. Now, Mike Kliss then chimed in with some contract details for Brett Maher. $965,000 minimum for his serve time, so the vet minimum, with $505,000 split, no guarantees, no bonuses, so he'll have to prove it to make it. My guess is Denver wanted to sign Brett Maher a few months ago. Brett Maher said, can I get $500,000 guaranteed? That way I pretty much know I'm making the roster. And Denver said, nope, we're not going to do that. So fast forward to now, and Brett Maher goes, fine, I won't take the guarantees. I just know I'm going to win this job over Elliott Fry. Now, there are some concerns for Brett Maher because we all know what happened in the postseason. After a spectacular regular season, it got ugly. 1 for 6 from extra points, 4 straight misses against the Buccaneers. Somehow Dallas was able to hang on, but we know with kickers, it's so much between the ears. It's all in their head. If they get the yips, you never quite recover. Go ask Blair Walsh that, right? Missed a 21-yarder in the playoffs against the Seahawks, and then he was out of the league a few short seasons later. So Brett Maher was awesome in the regular season last year, 90% field goal percentage, and he kicked a lot of field goals, right? 32. But in the postseason, very different story. Now, Maher, like half the guys on this roster now, has some overlap with Sean Payton. You go back to 2021, and he was the kicker down in New Orleans for Sean. He went 16 for 18, so a much smaller sample size than what he did in Dallas last year, but he was still very consistent for them. I mean, 16 of 18, 88.9% along of 42. They never called on him all that much, but when he was called on, he delivered. If I had to pick a kicker to make this team, I'm going to go with Brett Maher. Elliott Fry has a little bit of regular season experience. He's hopped around from practice squad to practice squad, but I think Brett Maher is the experienced kicker. He's the better kicker, and he is making this team over Elliott Fry. At least I hope so. I know the postseason yips are a bit cautionary, but let's get to the postseason first before we start worrying about having the wrong kicker in the postseason. Fourth takeaway I've got out of training camp is the Sean Payton impact. What does that look like, right, compared to having Nathaniel Hackett running the show last year, Vic Fangio, Vance Joseph? There's been a lot of head coaches in the last decade or so. Well, Justin Simmons said that Sean Payton reminds him of the movie 21, as Zach Stevens tweeted out, in terms of the way he views the game through numbers. So this is something a little bit different than we've seen compared to like Vic Fangio, who's a little bit more old school, right? And he's a big eye test guy. Well, looks like Sean Payton is a bit more of a numbers guy in terms of breaking it down. And I've seen the movie 21. It's been a little while. Don't think it had a great ending for Kevin Spacey, right? So hopefully that's different for Sean Payton. But it is a pretty good movie. Listen, Payton is going full throttle this August. This is a team that won 5 games last year. This is a team that was told last year during this time, you're going to be great. You're going to do wonderful things, sweetie. You're going to win a lot of games. What did they do? They were one of the worst disciplined teams in football. They were one of the worst penalized teams last year. They could not operate at home with a play clock. This team needs a smack from behind, and Sean Payton is going to bring that. There is not going to be paintball days, field days, or anything like that. They've got a lot of work to do. Sean Payton knows that, and they are going to get at it. if I want to be a lazy football player, Denver is one of the last spots I want to be for training camp, right? There are some other teams that, know what they are going into the season, like the Chiefs, for example, and maybe don't have to go as hard as other teams. Denver, they do not have that luxury. They've got to go balls to the wall. Fifth takeaway I've got coming out of day one, are we getting a new headquarters soon? So Sean Payton spoke to the media, Justin Simmons spoke to the media, a couple other guys, including the president, Damani Leech, and the new team's, owner, Greg Penner, more specifically, and he commented on a potential new headquarters coming to Denver and what the team forecasts and what they're trying to do. So right now, the facility is owned by the team, the land in terms of that, and when you own Walmart and when you're the richest owners in the NFL, you have the ability to, spice things up a little bit. I mean, the team spent $100 million renovating their stadium. So they have said that they are looking into revamping and maybe redoing the current facility. Greg Penner said it's a bit small, so you might see some construction in a few years down the road. They move pretty quickly, though, I will say. So maybe this is something they tackle after this season. I don't think they're going to do anything right now, though. Before we get to the rest of my takeaways, make sure you get this new deal on Fanatics. They've got the Broncos alternate helmet t-shirt. So if you're a fan of the Snowy Mountain alternate helmets, get your t-shirt today, chatsports.com/DEN alternate. They've got this shirt. They've got a long sleeve shirt. They've got a lot of new cool white t-shirts with the alternate helmet on it. So if you're a fan of it like I am, rock yours today. Get it down in the comment section. The link is there along in the description of today's video. The sixth takeaway. I've got a lot of takeaways. Sue me. From the first day of training camp is our new uniforms next on the docket. This is something I talked about when the new alternate helmet was released, was if this gets a good reception, which by and large it did, Damani Leech is probably not going to stop there. So Damani Leech, when talked about getting new uniforms, said, we're definitely working on it. It's quite a lengthy process, both with the league and with Nike. So I fully expect some uptick in the jersey process search to go. Damani Leech and Greg Penner and his wife, Carrie Walton, talked about going to Nike headquarters actually and sort of getting the ball rolling on what new jerseys could look like. As for a date, I wish I could give you one. I don't have one. It's not going to happen mid-season, that's for sure. Like the headquarters being redone, that could be something that gets spearheaded once this year is over. Just like how last year at the end of the season, the team rolled out $400,000 new turf for one game because why not? They're billionaires. I think next January, February, we could see some real traction on new uniforms and a new headquarters getting implemented. But let me know, do you want new uniforms? Where do we stand on this, everyone? Yes or no? I'm open to it. I'm up for it. I don't dislike Denver's uniforms. Could they be better? I think so. So for that reason, pencil me down as a Y for yes. I'd be open to some new unis. Next takeaway I've got is some latest roster moves I just wanted to share with everyone watching, kind of keep you guys up to speed on the 90-man roster. We had Wazurike get suspended indefinitely, so he is not going to count against this 90-man roster. Wide receiver Nick Williams, who was signed a few months ago and then released like 2 days later, I think for Ben DiNucci. I don't really recall who they moved him out for. Well, he was re-signed again. He's got some NFL experience, so you never quite know. He might push for a practice squad spot. Brett Maher was signed officially, and then JG, my old college quarterback from my Tennessee days, Jarrett Garantano, was waived to make room for Nick Williams and Brett Maher. Final takeaway out of day one from training camp. Are the Broncos back? Is football back? Football is not back. Football is back week one. But I will say, are the Broncos back? Like, is the vibe, are vibes high right now in Denver? We've been down this road before. Anytime you get a new head coach, you buy in on the turnaround starting. And unfortunately, this is not the first time Broncos country has been sold on a new coach turning things around, right? Whether it was Vance Joseph and his incredible leadership skills and the way he can rally a room around him, didn't result in wins. Vic Fangio, a defensive mastermind, couldn't really figure out the offense. Or Nathaniel Hackett, who was supposed to be an offensive mastermind, couldn't figure out anything. It's different this time with Sean Payton. I can buy in on that. Sean Payton is a Hall of Fame coach. And maybe he'll be a coach to make history, to win Super Bowls with 2 different teams. I am in on Sean Payton. That much I will say. To wrap up the show, it is still the off season, not until the Broncos Raiders kick off. So we have some summer hot takes, and I'm going to say this now. When I do this next summer, I might scale the hot take temperatures a little bit because, I don't know, global warming is kicking my summer hot takes ass, and every single time it appears to be over 90 degrees, at least the last week or so. So I think we only got like one honey barbecue take in, and I like honey barbecue, but it's never going to be 70 degrees again this summer. But my summer hot take for today, my first take hot take, if you will, Justin Simmons, he goes first team All-Pro for the first time in his NFL career. It is bonkers that he's only 1 Pro Bowl in his NFL career. He has been one of the best safeties in football. He's not a top 10 safety. He is a top 5 safety. The guy was on IR last year, missed 4 games, and still led the NFL in interceptions. He has 27 career interceptions. This is the year with Vance Joseph and Caden Stearns and Pat Surtain all getting better and better that he goes all-pro first team all-pro. So mark me down as a believer in Justin Simmons balling out this season. He talked to the media today. He outlined that winning is all that matters. He is one of my favorite players on this team, and I'm in on a big 2023 campaign.